Alright, we got a 722.303. Says transmission is not shifting into the last gear. 1 3/16 on the output nut. Usually there's a shim on the back. There may be more than one. You have to keep track of what shims go where. 3/4 inch on the kick down. It's a washer on the back. $13mm on the tail housing. Usually you have to have a pretty thin wall one to get up in on some of these. I'll keep these separate. It just makes it easier, or not easier, makes it quicker during assembly. I can figure out which ones are which, but everything around here is all about time. Alright, there's a little tab sticking out here. You can tap that off. Alright, usually there's more shims between here and here. This one does not appear to have any. Check your bearing in the back, make sure it's okay. Our park gear. Here's some more shims here. 3 of them there. This is our governor gear. Make sure it's not all chewed up. Go ahead and pull off our park gear. There's a little roller that goes up inside of here on your park rod. Pull off our return spring and our park actuator. On the rear pump there's a 10mm right underneath here. It's a nut, and it's the little lever right here that holds the governor in place. It's got a little seal on the back of it. Usually it disappears. You're not going to get it in the kit, so you probably need to put some silicone on that. $5 millimeters on the bolts that hold the pump. The ones that don't have a pump here, they'll have a plate that just bolts into there. We've got gears back here. Make sure they're not all chewed up. Usually they're not. Okay, come on off of there. I don't want to take the rest of this apart yet. I'll do it when I rebuild it. This is the important part right here. As long as this is okay, we're okay. This all looks okay, so we'll leave this off to the side. We got our servos here. This one's really spring loaded, so be super careful when you take it out. It don't come popping you in the face, because it will do it. It helps to have two people on this thing. Let me go get some help. Pop that snap ring out of there.
Is it the one that he was talking about?
Yeah.
You knocked him out?
Yeah, it will knock you out.
It says it's got two springs to it, yeah.
Yeah, you can leave one of them out. They don't help very much. Thank you, sir.
All right. Okay.
Two return springs here. Our servo and our cover. There's a plastic guide up in here. Forgot about the pump plate. Gotta take the pump plate off. Make sure your plate's not eat up. This one here is spring loaded also, but it's not going to pop out and knock you in the face. Turn this thing so it's kind of in the wrong spot. There we go. Alright, here's our cover. Here's our servo. Couple different styles of this. Here's our band apply pin. It's our governor cover. Here's our governor. Just make sure that the valve is moving. This one's stuck. Alright, 10 millimeter on your linkage. These grommets are horrible about breaking apart. $10mm on the neutral switch. $5mm on the modulator. Be careful when you're pulling this out. There's a couple of different styles. One of them has a really long stem, and it is easy to break it. this is the one with the long stem. You want to put this somewhere where it's not going to get broken. Modulator valve. $12mm Allen. You may or may not be able to get this out right now. If you can't get it, just leave it in there. You can get it later. If this hasn't been replaced and the O-rings on here haven't been replaced in a while, they'll pop right out. If the O-rings are in good shape, you're going to have a hard time getting it out. So we're just going to leave it in there right now because this has been rebuilt. It's been a while, but it's been recent enough that it's not going to come out easily. $13mm on the pump. Put them separately also. Usually you can just give it a couple little wraps on the pump and it'll slide right out. And set the pump off to the side. There's a little race here. There's bearing in there and there's some shims underneath that. You need to keep track of that also. We'll take this pump apart in a minute. Get her band out. And her front drum. Alright, pay attention to how the band was in there. This is going to face to this side, this is going to face to that side. This one's in good shape. Here's our bearing. Here's our shims to make up our end play. There we go. We'll take the drum apart in a minute. And nobody has ever, when they rebuilt it this last time, they never took the rivets out and replaced the O-rings that's back here, so I guarantee they're hard. Now we got our another band anchor. These O-rings right here, this is what, if it's leaking right here, you can put silicone, you can put sealer, you can do anything you want to, and it will not quit leaking until you change those O-rings. Oh, forgot. We have a snap ring back here in the back. This ring right here. Alright, now our planet system should come out. Usually these reverses right here are, yep, they're gone. All the lining's gone. And that's usually what happens. These things start leaking and they'll be working fine. Reverse will work fine. This thing will work fine all the way up until the point it rips them springs out of the back of the pump. And it'll never slip or anything. Our planet. Here is, if they did not put it back in. Okay, there's a rattle clip for the clutches that goes up in here. odds of me finding one are probably going to be pretty damn slim. Doesn't absolutely have to have it. Alright, we can't get our rear band out until we take our valve body off. Thrust washer that goes back there. We'll go ahead and take our valve body off so we can get our band out. 13 millimeters on the pan. Phillips on the filter bolts. You want to be very careful with this stuff back here. The manual valve is plastic on the tip. You don't want to break it. There's a couple little check valves that may come out when you pull the valve body off. You want to make sure and not lose those. The 3 gold bolts go on the lower part here, and the rest of these bolts are the same. Same with these back here, they're shorter and they're all the same. You may have to use a shallow wall socket on these. Some of them are kind of hard to get onto, especially these 2 up here. Check valve stayed in there, so we're going to leave this all together. Set this off to the side. Pull off our detent. It's got a little stiffener that goes on it. Pull our plate off. This little pin for our detent, you want to make sure and pull it out and don't lose it. And pull this out, make sure you don't lose it. I have seen this come out. I'd leave it in there. It's a little check valve. If it'll stay in there, I leave it in there. It fits pretty snug usually, until it shrinks, and I did have one fall out. Didn't notice it. 5 millimeter on your shifter shaft. Come on out of there. Should just slide off. Shouldn't be this difficult. Since we're on camera, it's going to be difficult. There we go. Pull your linkage out. And this will come out. There's another band strut right here. It's wanting to stay in there. I don't want to break that little retainer. Sometimes you get them in the kit, sometimes you don't. Just kind of compress your band down and then pull on the other end. The lining's still good, but it's cracked. So if we can come up with a band, we're going to replace the band. It's a little anchor goes through, so you got to do this first, and there's an O-ring in the case, and if this thing's leaking, you're going to have to take the unit apart to do it. You cannot get that thing out with the unit together. You can leave the stator shaft, or I guess what you would really call it, sealing ring. That's a deal that holds the sealing rings on for the drum. You can just leave that in there. You can leave your cable on here if you want to. These things are getting super hard to come across. And this is, I think I'm going to take it off. It's starting to crack, and I don't want it to get screwed up. There is, if you pull the cable all the way up, you can get it to disconnect. Getting this thing to where you don't break the tabs off is pretty non-existent. You can just silicone it in. It'll be okay. We'll see how difficult it wants to be to come out. Trying to do this where the camera can see it. It's going to be hard. Here we go. Just set it off to the side so we don't screw it up. Alright, case is empty. What's left in there you can leave in there. Usually I don't take this apart till I build it, but we'll go ahead and take it apart now. Snap ring back here. This is all going to drop once it comes off of there. Together. We got this here. There's supposed to be a washer there. There it is. There's our washer. Our sprag assembly. There's an O-ring on the back of there. Our planet. There's a bearing here. There's a bearing goes here. There's a barrel bearing inside of there. You want to make sure it's okay. Planets are usually okay. I don't think I've ever had a Mercedes Planet that was bad. You got another bearing on the front. Alright, let me take these drums apart. They have these rivets on the back. We're going to grind the rivets off. This drum here the plate that's on top is tapered, so your feet tend to slip off when you're trying to put this in the foot press. Be very careful about them slipping off because it will crack it in half. Alright, that one's just wanting to slip off. I'm going to end up breaking it. I'm going to have to find something to go around it. And we'll go ahead and do this one. These are both done the same, so I'll just go ahead and do this one. There's a retaining ring. Here's our retainer. There are springs missing, depending on what you got, which ones are missing. I just marked the ones and put it back the way it was. Actually, that's the wrong drum. You go over here. Start paying attention to what I'm doing, thinking about other things. Alright, come on out of there. Alright, there's our piston. Just take a grinder with a cutoff wheel. Most rebuild kits come with the stuff to do this now. Good quality ones anyway. Do want to be careful knocking this out, that you don't break the piston. Let's see what size this is. Yeah, I don't see the size. I'll find out what it is and I'll let you know. Find out where the rivet is and knock it out. Try to go even so you don't break the piston. Alright, this one is not cracked. Oh yeah, it is. Cracked in half right there. Alright, let me take the pump apart. Where did I set that? Over here. Alright, here's our retainer. Make sure we're still recording. A little wire that holds it down. Our return springs. This one will have them all the way around, so you don't have to worry about marking anything. This piston has to line up a certain way. Sometimes people break off the little line-up tab, so you will have to line that up physically, but it's still there, so we're okay. 13 millimeters on the pump. Make sure you're not using a pump that's too big for the threads, and it really doesn't matter about the punch on this either, as long as it's not bigger than the rivet. Alright, this should be okay. Usually is. Make sure your wear plate is not damaged on the back side where the gears are. I mark my pump gears always. The outer gear has a bevel to it. It has to go down. I mean, if you flip it over, you're going to wipe your pump out. It's got a deep bevel to it and it faces down. The inner gear really doesn't matter which direction it goes, but I always put it back the way it was. And check our surfaces in here and make sure everything's okay. So, looks like a pretty basic rebuild. We're going to do LS kit, pump bushing, modulator. It's a green one on this one. There's different colors, so be mindful of that. Have to make sure that the diesel took a green one, but we'll make sure of that. The rear band, if I can come up with one, and a filter, and pretty much basic rebuild on these things. It's what usually happens. They start leaking, rubber starts getting hard, and starts cracking, and every once in a while your bands are burnt or broken. So it's usually what happens on a Mercedes. We'll be back when we get it sold.